The Night Agent is an American action thriller television series created by Shawn Ryan based on the novel of the same name by Matthew Quirk. It premiered on Netflix March 23rd, 2023. The first episode is titled The Call. On this podcast, we like to discuss a recent installment of a different series every show. It's March 27th. Welcome to today's episode. So we're talking about a big week in TV here. You've got Succession returning, Yellow Jackets returning, shows like Kiefer Sutherland's Rabbit Hole that just premiered. And it gets me thinking that in the next month, because you have these big shows, you even have Waco coming out in a few weeks, that maybe the industry is stacking shows right now for what's about to happen in May.
What's going to happen in May?
In May, well, you remember the writer's strike from like 15 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Lasted 100 days. In 1988, they had one as well that lasted for 5 months, apparently. The Writers Guild of America, their contract is expiring May 1st. So we might be looking at another writer's strike. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because Shawn Ryan, the creator of this show, also the creator of The Shield, also the creator of Lie to Me, also the creator of Terriers, SWAT, Timeless, and he was an executive producer on The Get Down. So he's well established.
I'm kind of shocked to hear that the same creator who did SWAT did this show, because they do feel like completely different shows.
But the point is, he's had a lot of work with the Writers Guild, and I think he was part of the discussions last time that they took strike. And because this show is coming out now, if there was a strike, season 2 would definitely be delayed.
Yeah, and with it being a Netflix show, I'm sure it would even be delayed more than just like 2 years.
Yeah, and the reason they're expecting it might go into like a strike is because streaming services like Apple and Amazon have really jumped aboard the television bandwagon and gotten used to paying writers less than maybe the going rate.
Yeah.
And so that's going to have to change, and they're not sure if it's going to come to an easy agreement. It says unions representing more than 11,000 television and movie writers and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, which bargains on behalf of Hollywood's 9 largest studios, including Amazon and Apple, began talks on March 20th for the next 3-year contract. So they have a good month before this would actually happen. However, producers have begun to stockpile scripts for once it actually does happen. But yeah, let's veer into talking about the Night Agent. So
there's one thing that this show reminded me of most, one TV show, I would say Bodyguard. Not only because of the name, Bodyguard Night Agent.
Oh, the main character?
But also, yeah, the main character. They look similar.
They do look similar, but did you recognize where he was from?
No.
You wouldn't, but it's crazy. The guy was on the Big C, which was, he played the kid in that, but he was also in Super 8. He was like one of the 4 kids there. I think he was the tall one.
He was one of the 4 kids
Yeah,
there?
he's really like just changed like physically.
Yeah, I mean, I would say.
Bulked up probably for this role.
I never
kind of took a few years off acting. He was also in a movie called Kings of Summer a long time ago.
Never would have recognized him here.
Yeah, so that's what he's an action hero now, and this is another FBI based show, right? Kind of like The Recruit.
Yeah, I had The Recruit listed. I also said The Terminalist, more from just the tone and as I stated, Bodyguard, but also reminded me of Bodyguard and the 2012 Indian Hindi film Kahani, because that starts off on a train, and so is this actually. It's the first scene of the episode.
Well, that's where a biological agent is released in the Kahani thing, and then the wife comes and tries to find the husband for like half that film. So is the main character here looking for someone?
No, what happens is it's a bomb threat on a train. So
a TJ Miller threat, as they call them now. Okay.
Yeah, we start off with Peter, our main character. He gives up his seat to like this mom and her son, and then
are they evil?
No, that.
Okay, well, I'm thinking from Bodyguard. Like, remember there was.
Well, yeah, no, I know Bodyguard. That's why it reminded me of that as well. There's like the full 20-minute first scene. This doesn't start that long. This is just like a hooded figure. He kind of walks onto this train, puts a bomb down under a seat, and then leaves. And Peter sees this and thinks it's suspicious.
Would Peter have seen it had he not switched seats?
That's, I think, a question that the TV show is
I think the TV show, from what it sounds like, is saying no, that he wouldn't, that he's just a good guy, and because he's a good guy, karma happens. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, he as the train is going off, he goes and he checks under the seat, checks the bag, and sees that it's a bomb. And we're only 1 minute into this TV series.
How quickly does he go from I just saw a guy drop off a package to looking at said package? Because maybe the guy like walked down to the other car for like 1 second and was about to come back, and the this guy is like in his bag? Like, does he give him a
No,
grace period of like
again,
maybe...
the train has already taken off by this point, and the guy didn't come back for his bag. He just saw him place it underneath the
Okay,
seat.
that's fair then. Yeah.
So as the train is taking off, he sees it's a bomb, and he's like, oh my god, and he tries to get everyone out. The train stops. Everybody is told to run into the tunnel, and Peter realizes he's not going to be able to disarm this thing. He starts running as well, and then the bomb explodes.
Okay,
And
so they're able to exit the train without it being a problem, and the bomb is, I guess there must have been like 5 minutes on it or something, or...
I don't think that we ever saw a timer for it, but there's
Okay.
only one person that ended up dying in the tunnel, one passenger.
Some really slow guy?
Yeah, and I think that like Peter as well has had a concussion. I think also the guy who died not only was slow, but I think he was old as well, so it kind of makes sense.
Okay.
And then there's this like site kind of around where the bomb had exploded, where the tunnel was and everything.
Like a ground zero?
Well, I wouldn't say it's ground zero. I think it's taking place on top, on top of that place, so that people can come and kind of commemorate the losses, or at least see what's going on where the police cars are.
Okay.
And Peter somehow recognizes through this that the same hooded figure
Yeah.
that did
Okay.
the bomb
Why do
thing.
people always return to the scene of the
I
crime?
don't know. It was kind of idiotic for the
prisoners,
guy
right?
to return. Yeah, because the next thing that happens is Peter takes off after the guy, recognizing
Like
it.
prisoners.
And
yeah,
I
Jake
think-
Gyllenhaal's character, except that guy just happened to be very suspicious and he actually didn't do it. But
Yeah,
this was the actual person who had placed the bomb, and he
Yeah, and
thought, I can just show up and
I
no
didn't
one's gonna
know if the
recognize him.
writers were trying to give the person who planted the bomb a conscience by showing up to the place.
Well, it
maybe
is a
to
book,
feel bad
remember?
for
So
it.
it might just be that way in the book. But they
Yeah.
did change a lot of things about the book. So who knows? Peter is introduced in a way where he's a hero already. We don't need to be sold on that any further.
Well, I mean, he's also introduced in such a way where it seems like he's invincible. As much as I was enjoying, and the action is shot well in this show, but sometimes it's just ridiculous. Like he's needing to do hand-to-hand combat with this guy that he's running after. He even gets hit by a car at a certain point. I think he's already suffering from a concussion. Like all these things are happening, and it doesn't seem to really affect him at all. He's
So
still-
Jack Ryan, like compare him to that. Would he be able to beat Jack Ryan, or are they about the same?
No, the thing that I think is different from Peter, from maybe something like Jack Ryan or 24 or Jack Reacher for that matter, is I do feel like he's less experienced. Not really in like fighting terms, but I think more just in like his age.
So like Condor or The Recruit, I wanted to say Treason, but Treason was MI6 and he was a little bit older. Terminal List?
Yeah, that's what I said, Terminal
Okay.
List. But Terminal List more because of the tone, because of the dark tone.
But
that
like
it
Terminal
copied.
List, Chris Pratt's character is also older, you're saying. So
Yeah, but he was part of the army. I mean, it was a little bit different.
All right, so this guy is a newbie at the job, but somehow also
He's not a
Schwarzenegger.
newbie, but like he does explain to Rose, who is like the secondary main character in this show,
Yeah, a little
how
love triangle going, or a little love like connection going.
I hope it doesn't go that way, but it
Oh, it
definitely
does.
seems like it will.
It 100% does.
But he does explain to her at one point, he's like, I'm the lowest level of like the White House government or like FBI or something like that. Like he's not really told a ton of things that happens. He's just told to do tasks and then basically gets them done.
Take a listen to this one. It says, so Shawn Ryan, right, who serves as showrunner and executive producer, said Rose and Peter's love story will be deeply explored throughout the political thriller's 10 episodes. So you're saying they only laid the groundwork, but they didn't show anything like...
Yeah, I mean, the first episode, like in my summary I have, basically, Peter, an FBI member, is tasked with protecting Rose, whose Aunt Emma and Uncle Henry, two high-level FBI agents that were undercover basically their whole life, are murdered. Their one task is to survive the night and make it to Diane and Hawkins, who are two higher-level people. I think one is like the deputy director of the FBI, and Diane also has a job in the White House, but it's really
Did you
Peter's
recognize
boss.
Diane?
No, I didn't.
You would have seen her in the menu really recently.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And she was also in The Whale. So, like, this was a big get.
She looks completely different, though. She looks older, I think, in The Night Agent.
Okay.
But, yeah, so Rose can tell them basically her account of everything that happens, and then Dale, he's kind of the main villain, at least for this episode of the series. That's the summary.
Cool, yeah,
But
Phoenix Trail.
going back to the show, yeah, so Peter gets run over by a car. He still is able to get up, but that basically allows the assailant, the person who planted the bomb, to get away. And then we cut to this woman. We learn, I think that's Rose. She's getting seed seed funding, or she's getting a seed funding document because I think she's part of a startup or something like that.
Maybe.
And then she's like signing her signature, and then that's when the episode, weirdly enough, cuts to the intro. Thought it was strange because usually after like an action scene, that's when a show cuts. But they decided to cut after the woman was getting, just a woman we never saw before.
So 10 minutes in, 15 minutes in?
I'd say like, 7 minutes in or so.
Oh, God. Okay, so we're early on. Yeah. All right, so we're introduced to Rose. We're introduced to Peter. Now what?
Well then, yeah, so we after the intro, we see that's 1 year later after this mom thing. Peter, he's going to work.
Is he like her personal bodyguard?
Rose's personal bodyguard?
Yeah, because didn't you say he was assigned with protecting her?
Yeah, but that...
for a full year?
No,
or that happens later on?
That happens later on.
Okay, so this
hasn't
hasn't happened
my
yet.
summary.
No, I
yeah,
understand.
so Peter, he's going to work. That's when we see Diane really for the first time. And Diane was sent this video by the deputy director. That was basically of Peter. He was being interviewed, or not really interviewed, but kind of harassed by this reporter. I think the reporter's name was Gail or something like that. And he was basically asking Peter why he didn't do more to stop the bomb threat. Or there's also this weird connection between Peter and his father about how Peter's father had something to do with like a train or something like that, like something similar. And so like kind of feeding into that conspiracy angle. And we see that Peter is someone who does have a hot temper.
So it's like every industry from baseball to Hollywood, like nepotism exists, and like people usually follow their parents into their careers, or sometimes do, and kind of like in Slow Horses, this is like a lineage thing. And it's like my grandpa was an FBI agent, and my grandpa's grandpa was an FBI agent.
I mean, yeah, I think that his whole family like
is in the government at least.
To do with it. Yeah, I mean, and also, it wasn't Gail, it was Elliot Rome. That's the reporter's name. But it turns physical because Peter, he's basically, that really is when Elliot asks about Peter's father, that he just can't take it, because I'm assuming that that's how Peter's father died or something like that. When I was seeing that scene, something that the writers wanted to like bring up multiple times. He's even bringing up to Rose later on
about his dad.
Yeah, about
Have
his
I mentioned my dad?
And that's when I was like, okay, yeah, this is like a smarter version of The Recruit. Because I guess it's because they're taking a more serious aspect of it, but I was kind of like enjoying it up until this point. That's when we're about 10 minutes in.
Could there be a crossover? Aren't they both on Netflix?
They're both on Netflix, but I don't know if I could take
different tone.
Yeah, completely different tone.
This one
The Recruit. Well, The Recruit had definitely like intense parts to it. Sure. It was also comedic. This doesn't really have any comedic notions to it. There's a couple one-lines, but that's about it.
It just seemed like the whole premise is that he worked under the White House. That's what I had read. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, he's like working at the White House, but he's an FBI agent.
Yeah, I know, but like, does he take care of the president?
Well, this is, I mean, like, we're seeing like the president's cabinet, kind of. That's who he's interacting with the most. But this is when the story's like inciting incident happens. This is like really what the 10 episodes I think is about, because we're introduced to Rose, or at least I think that might have been Rose at the beginning. I'm not really sure who's getting the seed funding. The point is, she was staying at her aunt and uncle's house. I'm guessing that her parents died somehow, and the aunt and uncle were like out on vacation. Or maybe they were working, I'm not really sure, but they were coming back to their house, and she had been living there for like the past couple days. She had made lasagna for them, and she basically just...
Very important detail.
Well, I say that because over dinner she tells them that her startup just completely failed. Like, the people that she was working with had turned on her, and that it was just like, it was just done. So she doesn't really have any money. She's like filed for bankruptcy, and she's going to have to live there at their house for the next couple days. And the aunt, again, their names being Emma and Henry, are like, okay, that's fine. But in the middle of the night,
you're a millennial, we get it. Okay.
In the middle of the night, they wake up, and I do have to say, this reminded me, do you remember Abduction, the 2011 film with Taylor Lautner?
Yeah, but that one got horrible reviews. Are you going to compare it?
This is a little bit like that.
Also, he was like 17. That was the whole point. Is that he was a child.
I mean, Rose is definitely older.
Rose is 28 years old.
But it was just as ridiculous. And the thing that I found just so annoying about this was there are armed gunmen coming to the house.
A SWAT team.
Yeah. Well, it's not a SWAT
led
team.
by David Boreal.
No, it's nothing like that. These are bad people. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Emma and Henry, again, they're two like undercover night agents, and they've apparently been agents this whole entire time while Rose has been them like growing
Oh,
up.
it's like that Vin Diesel movie, The Pacifier. Yeah.
I mean, she has no idea, but she wakes up to them kind of arguing. Both of them have guns, and then she runs down, and then Henry really is the one. He has this like code written on a card. She's supposed to call this phone number down at this house at like the end of the corner. Well, they have to deal with these gunmen, and then she takes the note. She starts running to the other house, and that's when Emma and Henry. I was so annoyed with this. They die, straight up. But it was
the parents are dead, and now the uncle and aunt are dead.
The uncle and aunt are dead, but they introduced them just to kill them off, which is something that I hate when shows do. It kind of seemed like it was lazy. Henry dies because he
Well, did you actually see them?
Yes, no. Henry dies because he, I think he landed on a tripwire or something like that, and the wire made him lift off the ground and was around his neck. He gets choked out, and then Emma, I guess we don't really see her die, but we do see the bullet that's supposed to be completely killing her. And I don't see any reason why the guards would have kept her alive for any reason.
I just think that there has to be twists along the way, so someone's got to survive that.
That would be
maybe
one
her parents.
big twist.
Maybe her parents.
Maybe, yeah. But Rose, she goes to this phone. She calls Peter. Peter picks up. And she starts saying the code and everything, and then Peter starts asking her more questions and then she's not really sure because she's basically said everything that she needs to say.
Wait, is he asking her questions to find out if she's truly his, if her identity is confirmed, or is he asking questions to try to help?
It's for her identity to be confirmed.
If she knows the code.
Yeah, because he starts pulling out this big binder of stuff when she starts speaking, and he starts flipping through it, and it's is this Gazelle, or he says some other thing, and then she's I'm not really sure, and then at one point he's just you know what, I think you have the wrong phone number, and she's no, my aunt and uncle explains to him the situation. Peter decides to believe her, but at this point...
But if she had the code to start with, did she not have the code?
She was only given the words that she needed to say, and it
by
only
Peter.
had... By Henry.
By Henry, yeah.
And it only had a couple different things that, was enough for Peter to believe her, but wasn't, 100%.
Sure, so Peter gets absorbed in Rose's life, right? From then on out.
I mean, yeah, that's the first time that they kind of interact, but it seems like it's almost too late because Dale, the main villain, at least for the rest of this season, we see that especially by the end of this episode, but at least in this 10-minute sequence or so after the aunt and uncle die and Rose is hiding, all we see of Dale, because he's the one that's trying to look for her with this gun, is him running around. I thought that he was just going to be...
So he's not very smart.
Well, it's not the fact that he's not very smart, but it just doesn't seem like at that point that was a good introduction for the main villain of the TV series. Because
he's not giving the grunts the work to do. It's himself running around.
He himself is trying to find
seems like a small operation.
It seemed like you could, get any type of person who's working for him or some type of person to be doing this, but no, it's just him himself.
Do we get a good sense of people's motives here? Why the bomb happened in the beginning, why people are specifically after Rose, what makes her so important? Are they just tying up loose ends? Do we learn any answers?
Well, at the end of this sequence, Dale has escaped through the window, and the police have found Rose, and that's when Rose gets paired up with Peter for the first time. And
she's you're the one who didn't believe me on the phone at first, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I assume that what happened is that Emma and Henry, as we learn from Diane, again, she's the chief of staff. She's speaking to Peter, and she's these people were more than just undercover agents. These were
the best agents we had.
Which is strange if you're
because this one random Dale dude killed them.
but not
what a way to go out.
Yeah, not only that, but also
these were our John Wicks.
A problem with it is, as I stated earlier in the show, and as I stated later, Peter speaks to Rose, and he says to her that he's the lowest level of really anyone in the White House. So it's you're talking about how important these people are, but you're only going to pair him with this person?
The budget has been cut. And we have to make certain sacrifices. Rose does not demand that much attention. Okay.
And again, it's shot well. The show, especially when Peter and Rose are together, that's when it really hits its full force. Because I will say the threat seems imminent when they are together. Because this only takes place really throughout one night, but it seems like a ton of people are coming after them.
Well, you're saying it's oddly convenient that her parents die and then her aunt and uncle die, right? And that she just so happens to be going bankrupt. Is she in the line to get their stuff?
I don't think the show
could she be responsible? Like, could she just be wanting? Like,
You're saying they're in her will? She's in their will.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. I think the parents
like,
died.
Could Rose be evil? Is what I'm asking.
I don't think so. That would be one twist, though.
Ooh,
I'd be very surprised. But
sure.
I do want to say that Rose's parents, I think they died before the show started. That was just something that kind of you were supposed to put two and two together. But I did like when Peter and Rose were together because you get this cool car chase action scene.
So as soon as they're like hooked up, that's when the bad guy attacks again?
Well, I mean, there's like some scenes in between.
Yeah, you don't have to go over
Rose.
those.
Yeah,
if those don't matter. They don't matter.
But yeah, no, I mean, like,
are those them bonding, like getting ice cream together?
No, no, nothing like that. Again, the romance, I will say, it didn't seem like there was a chance that they might not go that route. Again, I'm kind of disappointed to hear that the show apparently will at some point. But
Shawn Ryan, yeah.
But Peter apparently he's like in this car with Rose and he's like driving the opposite way on this like bridge because of the fact that Dale, who is still there apparently and still trying to go after Rose, I guess 2 times in one night with this car behind them, is like speeding up on them. So the show does a classic thing where instead of going the right way, he's going the wrong way and he's dodging like cars that are coming the opposite way. Again, it's all shot well. I thought that it looked cool, but I was really thinking about this series and I was like, yeah, there's really no sense of realism that the show seems to have. I don't know what
so it's just goofy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, a lot of FBI shows are. So, like, you think about the X-Files, and it's all about sci-fi stuff. You got Quantico, which had Priyanka, whatever her face is, and these ridiculous, like, storylines of what's going on in Quantico in Virginia and trying to stop a terrorist threat there. Between those 2 shows, Criminal Minds, White Collar, Blacklist, Mindhunter, FBI, and then there's that new FBI show that just came out, right? Like a spin-off of FBI?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're all kind of ridiculous, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I was
Maybe
also...
Criminal Minds is the most, like, tame version of all these.
Well, I was going to say, actually, what this show could be related to the most isn't actually Reacher, the TV series, but it could be Jack Reacher, the first film. Because
the Tom Cruise one?
how ridiculous it gets at certain points. But yeah, even they're able... it does the classic thing where... so he's able to turn the car around and he plays not really chicken with the other car, but he like crashes into it. And even though Peter crashes into the car,
by the time he gets there, Dale's gone.
It's not that. He actually crashes in and then keeps going afterwards.
Yeah,
so he's
like
able
Batman.
So he's able to escape. I mean, like, it just seemed like this show was just kind of throwing anything at the wall and seeing what stuck.
So where does that lead us? Like, after all these interactions with the 2 main characters, does Dale just kind of give up for the rest of the episode, or?
We don't see him until the very end. Basically, Peter has rented out an Airbnb or some place that he's able to stay, and he set up cameras in his apartment. He knew that they weren't going to be able to stay there, and he sees that gunmen have entered his room.
Even though he's part of the FBI, and you would think that there would be some security around there.
Well, that's something that happens.
It seems like the bad guys are working on an equal budget.
He calls Diane, and he's like, "You're going to have to send people up to my room." Yet when the 2 people that they had staying outside his apartment go to their room, there's no one there, which is just strange because there was like 4 people that entered the room with like guns. You feel like at least one of them would be there. Why they were there, I really have no idea. This all leads to the end of the episode. Peter comes with Rose to this place at Diane, and also Hawkins. That's the deputy director's name. Who doesn't? Yeah. There's kind of a tension between Hawkins and Peter because of how much I guess Hawkins just doesn't like Peter for whatever reason. Peter basically says to Rose, "Tell them everything that happened to you. Tell them and be completely honest." And then that's when Rose says to Peter, she's like, "Actually, I heard my uncle."
My uncle. That's like a combination of aunt and uncle. Yeah, I know. I get it.
I heard my aunt and uncle, they said that there was a mole in the FBI, so I don't know if I can actually trust them. And then, that's just...
Took her that long to tell him that?
Yeah, until the very end of the episode. And then, Rose goes into the other room, and Hawkins and Diane are there, and they close the door, so Peter isn't able to see what happens. And at the very end of the episode, the last thing we see is Dale and this other woman. I'm not sure if we ever get her name. They also have this baby. They're waiting outside this woman's house. So the woman goes to check on them and is like, "Hi." And this and Dale's wife is basically like, "Yeah, I used to live at this house, and I was just wondering if we could actually go in and show my baby."
So that's
here.
right next to the Airbnb that.
No, this isn't next to the Airbnb. This is just a completely different house.
Okay, so why are they trying to get into it?
Well, because they needed to kill this woman
Well,
for
obviously.
some reason. Yeah, they like go inside.
But you're sure that it wasn't like they were trying to get a better location so that they could spot the Airbnb across the street or something?
No, because what happens is the woman, Dale's wife, she's basically like, yeah, I used to live in this house when I was younger. In fact, on that porch is where I celebrated one of my birthdays when I was really, really young. And then the woman is like, we just built that porch 5 years ago. And then she's like, oh, okay, then this should be easier. And basically pushes the woman into Dale's arm, who has one of those wires, and chokes her out.
Yeah, but they're trying to get into the house.
But what happens is after that happens, they walk out the house. Dale, this must have just been a side mission that we never saw because he texts an unknown number, done, and then the number says, okay, come back to Washington, D.C. to kind of like finish what you started. And as they drive off, we see that they left the baby in the house, and there's a news report. This actually kind of was funny. There's a news report that says like an hour ago at a mall, a baby was kidnapped. So that's the same baby that they had.
There's a news report.
There's a news report that talks about a baby being kidnapped at a mall an hour prior, and so that's the baby that we saw in the episode ends.
So they were trying to place the baby in the house of the lady that was murdered so that the police would think it was her baby because the baby's a double agent and would like work from like it would
You keep on talking about a twist that happens. I feel like there's a twist that happens in the TV show.
That's ridiculous. Why would you plant a baby? Like the baby can't do anything.
Well, no, they were just keeping the baby. They were just keeping the baby so that the woman would let them inside the house. Yes, that's what Dale and his wife.
Your way in there.
That's what Dale and his wife were saying. The Dale and his wife were basically like, "Can we come inside your house so I can show my baby where I used to sleep?"
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you give the show? The episode?
The show itself is so ridiculous. I mean, it's fast-paced and it's well-acted, but it just seemed insane in so many different ways.
24, Homeland, Americans.
Again, all those shows that you just mentioned, it seems like the main characters are a lot more experienced. And the thing about 24 is, like, Jack Bauer, he is also a problem kind of with 24. He's always right. Like, no matter what, he always had the right mindset, even if, like, it seemed like all of the U.S. was doubting him.
Even when he was on heroin. Yeah.
Well, and you're also talking about the Americans in Homeland. I haven't seen Homeland, but the Americans as well, they seemed experienced. It just seems like Peter himself isn't so. And I give this show, like, a 5 out of 10. Sadly, it doesn't pass.
All right. Well, it's gotten mixed to positive reviews. New York Times said in the long paranoid shadow of 24. So kind of a negative one there. However, I think Variety and The Guardian gave it 4 out of 5. So this is the second Guardian show that we've done in the last few that has been given a 4 out of 5, which is highly strange for them. Roger Ebert gave it a good review.
I do want to bring up
IMDb.
Yeah. There's a lot more action in this show in the first episode than there is for a lot of other maybe thriller action TV shows. But one thing that I found hard was it was hard for me to actually connect with the characters because Peter, we get the thing about his father, and we also learned he had an ex-fiance, and that's really all we get about him. Rose, in this episode, we learned that she's part of a failed startup, and that's really all we get about her. So while this action is going down, it actually reminded me a little bit of Spectre, because I had the same type of thought. It was like, yes, it's nice to look at, and it is intense at certain points, but the characters themselves, I really didn't care about what happened to them.
Maybe that's why Decider said skip it.
Decider said skip it?
Decider never says skip it.
Decider actually said
skip it.
That's the second show in a row that we've done where Decider said skip it, because I remember they said skip it for Digman as well.
So the Guardian and Decider have like switched their allegiances, and now Guardian is very more positive. On Rotten Tomatoes, I think it has like a 60-something%, but the audience score is like in the 80s. So yeah, mixed to positive, and no one's calling it like the best show in the world, but they're saying that
here, if you turn your brain off, I'm sure that this show is like fine to
acceptable.
Watch. Like I could even actually see myself seeing the rest of this series. Like I don't think that it's
so it fails
necessarily
as a.
It's not the thing that the show to me is just awful and I would never watch it. It's just the fact that
the pilot fails.
I felt like the pilot failed.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Well, then that's where we'll leave it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.